Welcome to the comprehensive DDD guide. In this 10-part series, I will explain everything you need to know to start off and become an excellent DDD player and unleash the power of capitalism with our corporate demons.
Part 5. Go Second and OTK. Yo, what's up guys? Last time we've learned how to create an unbreakable board no matter the hand that we are dealt with. However, we still haven't learned how to break a board going second. But don't worry, I got you too. The thing is, you have to understand that DDD in itself is a very simple deck going first. Many people can learn it in fact. But the true skill and the true skill expression, however, is shown when you can break a board, because our deck is very freeform when it comes down to that. You have to learn how to calculate all your OTK lines necessary, meaning you have to think 2 steps ahead basically. And you have to bait out interruptions too, and bait it in a way so that it gets the most value out of your card. Which is why I have come up with a going second protocol for you guys so that you can certainly break that board to win the game. Introducing the APA protocol. Just like APA, I want you to chew through your opponent's board like it's nothing. When you go second, I want you to think about 4 steps in your head. Only these 4 steps, okay? They are assess, protect, and attack. And I will explain now what I actually mean by them. First step, assess. I want you to assess the situation you are in, just like Reiji himself. The first thing you have to ask yourself is, what kind of deck they're playing when you go second. The better you know your opponent's deck, the better you can break their board and just win the game instantly. Knowledge is power, especially with our deck. Which is why we have to look into the different archetypes of decks that we can face. I would say there are around 4 main archetypes of decks that you are up against as a DDD player. Combo decks, control decks, chain burn and stall, and cringe stun. Combo decks do more than 5 special summons to end on a beefy boss monster just like Barone, a pop monster just like Promethean in the Grave, or any other monster that has outstanding stats basically. Control decks on the other hand are the opposite. They usually have combos that never go up to 5 summons, and they do more controlling by using any of their effects or typically back row, for example Labyrinth. Another special case would be Chamber and Stall. They pass on typically 5 back row sets and you have to typically guess what they do. An example for that would be Paleo or Chain Burn. Lastly, Cringe Stun. You have seen these stun Andes running around in Master Duel, so I don't have to explain to you what they do. They basically want to lock you out of the game and just have fun on their own. And depending on the archetype you're up against, I will show you how to beat it in the most conventional way possible. Second, protect by baiting out interactions. If you go second and you open with Swirl Slime, he can bait out like 2 interruptions instantly with his effects. And that's insane. And because of that, he has like the most value to get out as many interactions from your opponent as possible. Third step, protect yourself from more interruptions by specialing out one of these 3 guys to protect yourself from them. If you have the ability to special out one of these 3 guys, meaning Hiking Genghis, Rage or Siegfried, your opponent is pressured to get another interruption, because if he doesn't, we will have a better board presence than him. So after you did all these 3 steps, now it's the time to attack and go into your main play. So to do step 4, attack for game, you want to basically chain reborn every big DD monster that you still have in your grave to the field so that you can push through your opponent's board. That would be the standard way to do it at least. Moving on to the typical skills you could set so that you can push for game, OTK your opponent, or pop back row depending on the matchup you are in going second. First, the anti-back row going second skills. These are typically Arthur's and Thomas. Why, you might ask? Well, as you know, Arthur's is a soft once per turn pop of the back row, meaning if you can rescale Arthur's, you can pop twice per turn. Thomas, on the other hand, can recycle one of our DDs from the extra deck to reuse it again. With the right setup, this will create a 2 times back row pop each turn. On to the damage boosting going second skills. Griffin and Cerberus have very interesting effects so that we can push for game if we need more damage on the board. As a reminder for you guys, by popping itself a cost, Griffin boosts the attack of one of our DD monsters for each dark construct we have on the field and in the grave by 500 for that turn. So if we have like 4 constructs in field or grave, one of our monsters will get 2000 attack. Cerberus on the other hand modulates the level of one of our DD monsters to 4 and gives it 400 attack and defense permanently, even if it leaves the field. But our DD monsters must have a level, so sadly our XZs don't work with Cerberus. Okay, now to the anti-stun going second scale and the normal summon that we go to. So Rage is our go-to scale if we go against stun, because Rage allows us to normal summon any of our DDs without tributing. That is insane. And if we have Ragnarok in hand, we can then normal summon our Ragnarok by setting Rage as our scale, right? And then we can beat over any of these cringe normal summoned monsters, like a Barrier Statue, a Fossil Dyna, a Jaugen. We don't care, we simply are bigger and better. And there's one other nifty effect that Ragnarok has. He is a spot removal too, basically our Fenrir at home. By tributing one of our spare DDs on the field, we can target banish one of our opponent's monsters. Even set monsters. Okay, moving on to some really interesting extra deck monsters that we might consider to play when we go second in OTK. Or board break, depending on the game state that we're in. First is Tell. He's very underrated, but he's actually super important for going second. He not only burns your opponent for 1000 life points, he permanently debuffs the attack and defense stats of one of his monsters too. But keep in mind that you can only activate this effect if you have taken effect damage this turn as well. Next one is our big boy Caesar. So if you manage to negate and destroy either your own special summon or of your opponent, Caesar and one of your DDs can gain 1800 attack points. And it's not even once per turn. Absolutely mad. Next is one of our other honorary DDDs. It's Zeus. So if you don't know, Zeus is basically a Heavy Storm and Dark Hole on legs. And he does not even destroy the cards, but only send them to the grave. Ha! Take that, Unchained and Fire King. He's one of our main ways to out Kashtira boards. To get to Zeus, you only need a DDD on the field. That's it. You overlay into Machinex, attack one of your opponent's monsters, go to your main phase 2 and then overlay Zeus on top of Machinex. Easy. Lastly, potential in-archetype OTK tags for our DDD Extra Deck. Now, this gets really spicy. Typically, most people would not run these guys, but they have a lot of hidden potential, especially going second, which is why I run at least one of them always. Both require 2 DDDs as fusion material, so they can be used interchangeably. First off, Caesar Ragnarok. He's a UR from the Cross-Dimensional Contracts pack, and he can non-target equip one of your opponent's monsters and gain the attack of that monster too. Nightmare fuel. Second, Purple Armor. He's a rare from the same pack, but instead of equipping the monster, he target pops your opponent's monster and burn him by half the attack points of that pop monster. Super nasty, especially if you play into time. Okay, enough of the chit chat. Let's go into the gameplay examples. Okay, in this match we go up against Salad. Salad is one of the typical combo decks. Start the first step and assess the situation. Okay, pause. Typically it's a good play to negate the surge that comes from Salamangreat of Fire, which is why I would chain Valor onto it. For everyone who doesn't know, Bailey Links is the Swirl Slime correspondent for the Salamangreat deck. Basically they want to bait out another interruption from us by using Bailey Links' search effect. It now searches their field spell, but their field spell actually doesn't give them any benefit in our turn, so we simply don't care and let them move on. We save our ash for something more important. Okay, this looks like a very weak board, but don't let it fool you. Because you have to understand that Salamangreat players, they play around 15 to 20 hand traps. And they have a trap card called Salamangreat War. It's an Omni-Negate pop, which is live when they have Salamangreat on the field, which is the case with Bailey Links. So even though this board looks very weak at first, you better not underestimate your opponent. Especially if he still has 3 cards in hand, which can be hand traps for all I care. So better be safe than sorry and play around any hand traps that might come. Look at this hand, absolutely loaded. With this hand, we can OTK safely. Since he has 2 back row and potentially 3 hand traps in hand making 5 interruptions, we obviously have to start with Source Line. Command step 2. Protect your resources by baiting out all the interruptions. Ha, so it was War, called it. Okay, now normal summon Copper to bait out another interruption. This one gets an Ash. Okay, another pause. Ask yourself this. Your opponent still has 1 back row, so what do you go into? Do you go into your Gilgamesh right away to do your standard play? Or go and make a different play and surprise your opponent? So because I don't want to take the risk and play conservatively, I want to surprise my opponent with another play I have in hand. So if you have the chance, never play into an imperm or a droplet, okay? Which is why we go into the 3rd step. Protect your resources by baiting out even more interruptions. Special out your Ragnar so that you banish the beta links and see what's in the back row. It's an imperm, call it. But since you just tributed your Caesar for the banish effect of Ragnar, you can go ahead and search a Dark Contract with it. We search ourselves a Swamp King. And now we use the Swamp King to fuse into a small Genghis. And with that we have 2 Reborns live. We can chain Reborn now. We go into our Gilgamesh. Now with Gilgamesh we will scale 1 Orthrus and 1 Kepler so that we can Pendulum Summon out our Ragnar and activate his Reborn effect to reborn our small Genghis from the grave. And now we go to the 4th step. We go for the OTK. With overlaying into Markinex we can reborn another one of our DDs from the grave and we go into our Tell. And with that, it's game. Our opponent has to scoop. Okay, next game. Again, assess the situation. What is your opponent playing? Okay, it's Cyberdark. That means he's a Zane Truesdale cosplayer. I will spare you the details. Usually they will end on their Cyberdark Enddragon, which is a beefy beatstick and a tower, and that's it. And like if they pull the nuts, they may have an Omni Negate as well. Let's see. There, you see? I called it. Oh, and I resolved Maxi on the way. Okay, question. How would you out this board? We don't play High King Alexander, which is why we don't have anything that beats over 5000 naturally. So how do we out the Cyberdark Enddragon? Okay, you got it. There are 2 ways. First way, he has 2 monsters on the field and we can suck it up with Caesar Ragnarok and push it over when the second monster of the opponent has at least 1700 attack, but this isn't the case because his Nexter is like, what, 1-200? This is not enough. So the only other way is to stall our opponent so that we have enough constructs on the field and in the grave to boost our attack up with Griffin, which is exactly what we're gonna do now. He still has 2 cards in hand and they could be hand traps, so we have to play around it. Our second step commences again. Go and protect your resources by baiting out interruptions. We didn't start with Duel, so we have to bait something out with Gate. Then it gets an Ash, obviously. But we have called by. Now follow the protocol. Remember to chain block. Now since we can't go into an OTK this time, we will scale our Authors and Ragnarok as usual. Now, after we have burned our opponent with Tell, we're gonna pop Tell and the back row and Foolish Rage. We go into our second small Genghis to trigger Ragnar's Reborn effect so that we can reborn the Rage that we just Foolished with Tell. But since our Big Caesar is useless in this case, we're gonna tribute him off so that we can fetch another of our contracts. Keep in mind that we only need 4 contracts so that we have our win condition. Lastly, we tributed off our Gilgamesh so that our opponent can beat over anything and we can get damage. Then we activate Eternal Darkness so that we make ourselves immune to any sort of fusion off of Clockwork Knight. And then we just have to stall long enough to have enough contracts in our graveyard or on the field. Now it's time for the OTK. We have certainly enough of the contracts in the grave or on the field. And now we're gonna fetch another of our contracts and clock out one of our scales so that we can use our Griffin. Now our big boy comes out. Let us introduce our Caesar Ragnarok to the opponent. Now we're gonna activate Griffin and Caesar Ragnarok has 5200. Might as well activate our Cerberus as well for good measure. And then we go into our Gilgamesh. Now, flip Rage to attack position, activate Caesar Ragnarok's effect to suck in another monster, beat over Cyberdog and Dragon, go with Gilgamesh and go with Rage for game. Okay, as usual, first step, assess the situation. What does he play? It's Dynamorphia. Okay, so listen, this is a type of matchup, if they don't know what your deck does, they instantly lose. Alright, so our draw is called by, and he's playing Dynamorphia with 3 back row and his deep blow is online. For anyone who never played against Dynamorphia, they have this certain gimmick. Their main win con is to get their life points as low as possible and turbo out their Rex term as soon as possible. Why, you might ask? Well, the Rex term is basically their floodgate, and it prevents every monster that has more attack than he has life points to activate their effects. So it's basically a skill drain. To deal with that, the easiest way would be to get to our Rage as fast as possible because he has 0 attack, and regardless of how low his life points get, we can actually activate his effect pretty simply, and we have to resolve 2 effects of Rage. The first one would be to attack directly, and the second one to deactivate any hand or graveyard effect. Why? Well, Dynamorphia has this other gimmick that by banishing their trap cards they can dodge effect damage or battle damage. So we have to shut these effects down immediately as well, and I will show you how. Okay, this time we go all in. We're gonna use Gates to get Rage without baiting anything out. This was risky, but it was necessary. Now we're gonna use Swirls, and now they're gonna chain a max C2. We're gonna call it like that. And then he changed his counter trap, which he could have used for our gate to negate it, which was a big misplay on his part. And from this point on, we basically don't care what he's doing. He's gonna go and get his Rex term out as soon as possible. We're gonna try to get our small Genghis out. This is only because we actually needed the Swirl Sun to be engraved so that we can special out our Rage. And when we can special out our Rage, it's gonna be easy and GG from then on. Here goes the Rex term, called it. Now we're gonna activate Swirl from the grave to banish itself so it can special our Rage, and Rage to activate so that we can attack directly. We get Lamia out, and then we can tribute her to turn off hand and grave effects. He activated it too late and he had to scoop, because then I would have just OTK'd him in the battle phase. Again, first things first, assess the situation. What is he playing? And this looks like Chainburn or Lab. Okay, pause. We still don't know for certain whether it's Chainburn or Lab. So to find it out, we have to bait it out with our Swirl Slime. So we're gonna use our Swirl's fusion effect so that he changes something, I don't know, maybe a mysterious trap card that I don't know of, or like, surprise me. Here goes nothing. And it's Chainburn. Wow, that was easy. Alright, so what's the game plan against Chainburn? They typically use Ring of Destruction and Secret Barrel. And for monsters, they usually have Lava Golem, so it is of our best interest to not have more than one monster on the field. And the monster should be low attack too. And we have 2 perfect targets for that. So our strategy is to stall with Kepler and Authors in Scale to pop as many back row as possible and then go with Rage for game. Alright, you got it? Let's do it. Time for step 2 and 3. Protect the resources. Okay, now scale Rage and Authors. Now use Authors to pop Gilga in the back row so that we don't have a Ring of Destruction target. Okay, get Serb with Gate as a contingency plan because Serb can fetch one of our contracts from the grave again. Now pen summon Kepler and Swirl. Now use Kepler to pop a back row and resummon Kepler from the extra deck by pen summoning. Then Kepler will pitch the Rage back and we can go for game. Activate Rage's effect to deactivate any back row. And since we have so many resources in hand because we stalled, we can now pop off and go to our big plays. Go into our small Genghis, go into our big Genghis, so on and so forth. And since we Chain Reborn right now, we have way more than lethal. Going to our 4th step, attack. Okay, here we go guys, last match. Who are we up against? First things first, assess. And it's a stun Andy, let's go! Alright, pause. So for everyone who never played against stun, what is their game plan? Our opponent has a classic stun opener, meaning he has a lot of back row and a Fossil Diner online. So what do they do? And how should we work around that? Okay, first off, their normal summon. The normal summon is usually a monster that locks you out of special summoning altogether. And sadly, this is already the case because Fossil Diner is right there and staring me down. So my swirls in hand, my 1-for-1, are dead. I can't use them for specialing anything out whatsoever. Okay, next is the back row. Our opponent set 3 cards and we have to guess what they could be. And with stun they usually have protection traps, negation traps, or spot removal. That's it. So usually they play cards like Solemn Judgment or Dogmatica Punishment or something else that just protects their normal summon. And for spell cards they usually use Moonmirror Shield so that they can protect their monsters because their attack stats are usually weak or the defense stats are usually weak, or they use Clockwork Knight. And Clockwork Knight buffs their own attacks and decreases the attacks of our monsters so that they can get overrun by ours. So enough with the chit chat, how do we go about this? Our usual 2 protection stats with Swirl Slime and other extra deck monsters just get thrown out of the window because we can't special summon anything. So how do we bait out anything and how do we win the game? As stun is a special case, you have to look at it this way. Imagine yourself traveling back in time. You are now not in the modern format, but in the Edison format, okay? If you can't special something on your first turn, that's not game ending, because you still have many more turns left to go so that you can hit over your opponent. So your goal now is to actually play along and play with their rules. Meaning you don't need to special anything, you just normal summon the biggest monster you get and with the nicest effects, and then you go for game. And you try to bait out their back row simultaneously by trying to run over their normal summon monster. Because if they lose their monster, they are a goner, trust me. So our best bet is to actually fetch our Rage with Gate so that we can scale him to have access to a normal summoned Ragnarok and other normal summoned bigger DD monsters in our deck so that we can run over their normal summons all the time. And while doing that, they simply have to respond with either their back row or by hoping to draw the out. Literally an Edison format playstyle. So lean back and enjoy the ride, because I have to hope that my Heart of the Cards are with me as well. Our MVPs this time are Abyss Ragnarok and Cerberus, because they have the beefiest attack out of all the monsters in our main deck. So without further ado, let's go and win against this stun Andy. Oh, and remember to always keep your cool. I know how frustrating it can get with stun. Alright, we start off by activating Gate. Gate effect, and he chains a protection trap so that I can target his monster, as I've expected. Now we're gonna fetch Rage and we're gonna attempt to scale him and see what happens. He Solemn Judgment us. So sadly, our Ragnarok is a goner, since he is not accessible anymore without Rage as a scale. And I can't even recycle him back because Necro Valley is online. So our only hope is our Cerberus. Thankfully, he crashed into our Duel. So after we have dealt with his Fossil Dyna and his Necro Valley, we have enough follow-up or gas so that we can go for game. Now let's fetch our Cerberus, and now let's attempt to normal summon him. Ah yes, the classic, Dogmatica Punishment. Okay, we have run out of all the options. What do? Well, we still have a card which recycles our face-up extra deck, right? Let's fetch Thomas and scale him. And it seems like our protection step is great because we have baited out 2 back rolls already. Now we're gonna attempt to normal summon our Cerberus again and crash into his face down. It was a Jaugen. Oh, fantastic. It's an Ecclesia, so he's gonna fetch Dogmatica Punishment again to attempt to get rid of any of our monsters. Oh wow, a droplet. Didn't expect that. Now he can run over my Cerberus and hit me with his Ecclesia. I need Orthrus desperately. And bingo, Heart of the Cards, let's go. Now let's fetch Copper. For a spare Foolish, you never know. Now we're gonna activate Orthrus right away so that we can pop the Dogmatica Punishment. And with Thomas, we're gonna fetch back our Cerberus, normal summon him and run over Ecclesia. Ooh, okay. He set another back row. I feel like it's gonna be another Solemn again. So to bait it out, I'm going to activate Orthrus right away. And it was another Solemn. Alright, we have outgrinded him. So if he doesn't draw anything noteworthy, we are going for game next turn. Okay, let's go for the attack. Alright, Heart of the Cards. Oh damn, this is great. We're gonna use Gate to get Ragnarok, and now we're gonna use Gate so that we can pop the trap card. And this is GG. Ah yes, the typical fate of stun Andies. Congratulations associate, now you have really outdone yourself. With this video you even learned how to go second and maybe break a board or go for the OTK. So what can even stop you, right? Well, there's still one thing. If you're a player in the TCG, you may know the term playing into time. And let me tell you, there are some decks, I'm looking at you Paleozoic, that will 100% waste your time and play in time so that they will win. And I will show you how to get them, because they think in their naivety that they can outplay us because we have to burn ourselves for our contracts. But let me tell you one thing, if there's one thing that we're good at, is that we have always an answer for every situation. So in the next video, I will show you how to play into time with our secret weapons against these decks. Next time in the DDD guide, play into time combos.